The evolution of cartoons from the 90s to the late 2000s, a nostalgic journey. If you grew up during the 90s and early 2000s, chances are that cartoons played a huge role in your childhood. For many of us, Saturday mornings were sacred. Those hours spent in front of the TV, bowl of cereal in hand, watching our favorite animated characters go on wild adventures, face off against impossible odds, and learn a life lesson or two. But cartoons were more than just a source of entertainment. They were a reflection of society and its evolving cultural landscape. As the 90s gave way to the late 2000s, the world of animation underwent a significant transformation, not just in terms of technology and storytelling, but also in the way it represented diversity, humor, and life lessons. Let's dive into the evolution of cartoons during this era, exploring the creative shifts, the way they tackled social issues, and how they resonated with audiences across generations. 1. The golden age of 90s cartoons. Bold, imaginative, and unapologetically weird. The 1990s is often referred to as the golden age of television animation. It was a time when networks were taking risks, experimenting with bold, imaginative content that blurred the line between children's entertainment and something deeper. Cartoons of this era weren't just colorful distractions for kids. They were often layered with humor, absurdity, and, in some cases, surprisingly mature themes. Age, Nickelodeon's influence, from Rugrats to Hey Arnold. Nickelodeon, often hailed as the king of 90s cartoons, was instrumental in shaping this era. Shows like Rugrats, 1991, captured the world through the eyes of toddlers, blending childhood innocence with surprisingly adult themes. The genius of Rugrats lay in its ability to tackle big ideas, like sibling rivalry, fear of abandonment, and even religion, with a quirky sense of humor. Despite being babies, Tommy, Chucky, Angelica, and the gang were relatable to kids and adults alike. Then came Hey Arnold, 1996, a show that was way ahead of its time in terms of diversity and social consciousness. Set in a multicultural, urban environment, Hey Arnold introduced kids to complex themes like poverty, immigration, and broken homes, all while focusing on a football-headed kid with a heart of gold. Arnold's neighborhood was a melting pot of characters from different ethnicities and backgrounds, making it one of the most realistic and progressive depictions of urban life in animation. Beach absurdity and irreverence, Ren and Stimpy and Rocco's Modern Life. If you were a fan of offbeat humor, the Ren and Stimpy Show, 1991, was probably your jam. This show took absurdity to a whole new level with its surreal animation style and gross-out humor. Ren, a psychotic chihuahua, and Stimpy, his dim-witted cat friend, engaged in some of the most bizarre antics ever seen on children's television. But what made Ren and Stimpy groundbreaking was its willingness to push the boundaries of what was considered acceptable for kids' programming. It had slapstick humor, strange surrealism, and a kind of dark, subversive edge that would later influence shows like South Park and Family Guy. Rocco's Modern Life, 1993, was another Nickelodeon classic that thrived on satire and absurdity. While on the surface it appeared to be a show about a wallaby navigating adult life in a strange city, Rocco's Modern Life was a sharp critique of consumerism, corporate greed, and even the mundanity of everyday life. As kids, we may not have understood the deeper satire, but it planted the seeds of social awareness early on. See Superheroes Rise Again, Batman, the animated series, and X-Men. The 90s was also a time for a renaissance in superhero animation with Batman, the animated series, 1992, leading the charge. This wasn't just a cartoon about a guy dressed as a bat. It was a masterclass in storytelling, animation, and character development. Dark, atmospheric, and deeply psychological, Batman, the animated series took inspiration from film noir and brought Batman's rogues gallery to life in a way that was both haunting and empathetic. Villains like Mr. Freeze and Two-Face weren't just evil for the sake of it. They had tragic backstories that made them complex characters rather than just obstacles for Batman to punch through. Around the same time, X-Men, the animated series, 1992, gave us a superhero team that wasn't just fighting bad guys. They were fighting for acceptance. The X-Men, with their powers representing various social outcasts, were a metaphor for marginalized groups in society. The show tackled issues like racism, prejudice, and civil rights in a way that was accessible to kids, but resonated with adults as well. It was another example of how 90s cartoons weren't afraid to address heavy, real-world issues under the guise of entertainment. 2. Early 2000s, the era of silliness and substance. As the calendar flipped to the 2000s, cartoons began to shift in both style and substance. With advancements in animation technology and a growing awareness of societal issues, cartoons of the early 2000s straddled the line between silly and substantial, blending slapstick humor with surprisingly deep narratives. A. SpongeBob SquarePants, the king of surreal comedy. One of the most iconic cartoons to emerge from the early 2000s was SpongeBob SquarePants, 1999. At first glance, SpongeBob appeared to be just a goofy show about a talking sponge who lives in a pineapple under the sea. But creator Steven Hillenburg infused the show with an offbeat sense of humor and subtle messages about friendship, work ethic, and optimism. SpongeBob's relentless positivity contrasted hilariously with Squidward's perpetual cynicism and Mr. Krabs' greedy ways, making it a show that appealed to both kids and adults. What made SpongeBob truly special was its absurdity. The humor was random and unpredictable, and the animation often took a surreal turn. But underneath the silliness were relatable themes about growing up, feeling out of place, and finding happiness in the small things. It's no wonder that SpongeBob became a cultural phenomenon, spawning memes, movies, and merchandise that continue to be relevant even 2 decades later. B. Samurai Jack. Artistry meets minimalism. In stark contrast to the zany world of SpongeBob was Samurai Jack, 2001, an action-packed, visually stunning cartoon that leaned heavily on minimalism and artistry. Created by Genndy Tartakovsky, Samurai Jack followed a lone samurai trapped in a dystopian future, battling his way through various foes in search of a way back to the past. What sets Samurai Jack apart was its unique animation style. Each episode felt like a moving painting, with long stretches of silence, dramatic landscapes, and minimal dialogue. The show was a meditation on loneliness, honor, and the timeless battle between good and evil. Its mature themes and cinematic approach to storytelling were rare for children's animation at the time, making it a beloved series for both kids and adults alike. C's diversity and representation, The Proud Family and Avatar, The Last Airbender. As the 2000s progressed, cartoons began to emphasize diversity and representation in more meaningful ways. The Proud Family, 2001, was one of the first animated shows to feature a predominantly African-American cast, centering on the life of Penny Proud and her hilarious, loving, and sometimes over-the-top family. The show dealt with cultural identity, family dynamics, and the challenges of adolescence, all while showcasing Black culture in a positive and authentic way. It was a groundbreaking series that opened the door for more representation in children's animation. Perhaps one of the most celebrated cartoons of the early 2000s was Avatar, The Last Airbender, 2005. Set in a fantastical world inspired by Asian cultures, Avatar followed Aang, the last Airbender, on his journey to defeat the Fire Nation and bring peace to the world. What made Avatar so special was its deep mythology, complex characters, and themes of war, peace, destiny, and forgiveness. It tackled heavy issues like genocide, colonialism, and spirituality in a way that was accessible to younger audiences, without sacrificing the emotional depth needed to resonate with older viewers. Avatar, The Last Airbender was also a huge leap forward in terms of representation, with a cast of characters that reflected different races, cultures, and philosophies. It set a new standard for animated storytelling, blending Eastern and Western influences in a way that felt fresh and inclusive. 3. Late 2000s, the age of meta-humor and social awareness. By the late 2000s, the world of animation had evolved even further, with cartoons beginning to embrace meta-humor, social awareness, and more sophisticated storytelling techniques. Shows were no longer just for kids. They were becoming a cultural phenomenon that appealed to all ages. 8. The rise of meta-humor, Phineas and Ferb and the Fairly OddParents. Cartoons in the late 2000s began to lean heavily into meta-humor, breaking the fourth wall, and playing with the conventions of storytelling. Phineas and Ferb, 2007, was a prime example of this trend. The show followed two stepbrothers as they embarked on increasingly outrageous summer adventures, all while their sister Candace tried to expose them to their mom. But the beauty of Phineas and Ferb lay in its self-awareness. The characters frequently acknowledged the absurdity of their situation, and the show's musical numbers and recurring gags became a signature feature. The Fairly OddParents, 2001, was another show that thrived on meta-humor. Timmy Turner's fairy godparents, Cosmo and Wanda, granted him wishes that often went hilariously wrong, and the show regularly poked fun at itself with clever writing and pop culture references. It was a blend of slapstick humor and deeper, more thoughtful commentary on growing up, responsibility, and the consequences of getting exactly what you wish for. B. Cartoons as social commentary. Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends and Chowder. As animation continued to evolve, shows began to tackle issues like friendship, belonging, and individuality in more nuanced ways. Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, 2004, was a heartwarming series about a foster home for abandoned imaginary friends. Each episode explored themes of loneliness, acceptance, and the importance of finding one's place in the world. The show's unique premise allowed for a rich array of characters, each representing different aspects of childhood imagination and the challenges of growing up. Similarly, Chowder, 2007, was a whimsical series about a young chef's apprentice living in a fantastical world of food and magic. But underneath the quirky humor and colorful animation were messages about perseverance, creativity, and the value of learning from your mistakes. Conclusion: cartoons as a reflection of society's growth. The evolution of cartoons from the 90s to the late 2000s mirrors the changing landscape of society itself. As animation technology improved, so did the scope and ambition of the stories being told. Cartoons went from simple, episodic adventures to complex narratives that tackled real-world issues like diversity, identity, and social justice. From the multicultural cast of Hey Arnold to the profound lessons of Avatar, The Last Airbender, cartoons became more than just entertainment. They became a platform for reflection, empathy, and understanding. The late 2000s saw cartoons embracing meta-humor and self-awareness, blending fun with substance in ways that continue to resonate with audiences today. As we look back on this golden age of animation, it's clear that cartoons have not only entertained us, they've shaped how we view the world and each other, one episode at a time. Today is your lucky day. Today is the day that our $3 website works for you, paying you directly to your PayPal daily. Imagine $3 ongoing continuous payments to your PayPal account. Imagine falling asleep and waking up to $300 in your PayPal account. How would this make you feel? How could this help you? What bills could you pay? What kind of fun could you have? What does that retirement look like now? All for a one-time payment of $3. This website is DFY done for you, fully built and completely hosted, and never stops collecting payments for you. You have spent $3 on coffee on a regular, but that coffee won't help you create multiple streams of income. Click the link below.